The lighthouse beams swept across the darkened shore, illuminating the restless waves for a brief moment before continuing its eternal rotation. Lucas Bennett pulled his jacket tighter against the autumn chill, his footsteps leaving temporary impressions in the wet sand. At 23, he found peace in these solitary midnight walks, a respite from long days divided between marine biology studies and helping his father maintain the lighthouse that had been in their family for generations. Tonight felt different. The air seemed charged with an expectation he couldn't name, and the stars above shimmered with unusual intensity. Lucas paused, gazing upward at the vast canvas of constellations. His attention caught on a streak of purple light cutting across the night sky, too colorful for a meteor, too controlled for space debris. "What in the world?" he whispered, tracking its descent as it disappeared behind the dense forest bordering the northern edge of the beach. Against better judgment, Lucas abandoned his planned route and headed toward the tree line. The normal sounds of the forest rustling leaves, scurrying nocturnal creatures were eerily absent as he ventured deeper among the pines. A faint glow emanated from a small clearing ahead, pulsing like a heartbeat. The source was unlike anything Lucas had ever seen, a sleek oval pod, surface shimmering with iridescent symbols. Steam rose from its hull, which had carved a shallow trench in the earth. More remarkable than the craft, however, was its occupant. She lay unconscious beside the opened hatcha woman, with skin the color of twilight violet. Strange luminescent markings swirled across her exposed forearms and around her closed eyes. Her midnight blue hair floated around her face as though suspended in water despite the still night air. Lucas approached cautiously, medical training overriding his astonishment. Her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. A trickle of silvery liquid blood traced a path from her temple to her jaw. "Hello," he called softly, kneeling beside her. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes snapped open, startling amethyst irises focusing on him with surprising clarity. In one fluid motion, she scrambled backward, raising her hand defensively as a small device materialized in her palm from a bracelet on her wrist. "Stay back," she warned in accented but perfect English. "I mean no harm, but I will defend myself."
Ow.
Lucas raised his hands. "I'm not going to hurt you." "Your ship crashed. You're injured." Her eyes darted around, taking in the forest, the night sky, before returning to his face. "What planet is this?" "Earth," Lucas replied, struggling to keep his voice steady. "You're in Maine, United States." She lowered the device slightly. "Earth is ... primitive. Unaligned in the galactic concordat." Her shoulders relaxed fractionally. "You are not part of the Vexian Empire?" "I'm just a student. Marine biology. I work at the lighthouse over there." He gestured vaguely toward the coast. Something in his ordinary answer seemed to reassure her. She swayed slightly, her composure faltering as injury and exhaustion caught up with her. "My name is Thea Nova, third daughter to the High Council of Lumeria," she said, her voice growing faint. "And I believe I require your assistance." Lucas lunged forward just in time to catch her as she collapsed. The strange device slipped from her fingers, retracting back into her bracelet. Up close, he noticed how her skin seemed to shimmer slightly, like the surface of a calm sea under moonlight. "Lucas," he muttered to himself, "so much for your quiet life." Right. With gentle care, he lifted the unconscious visitor and began the careful journey back to the lighthouse. Knowing that everything was about to change, the lighthouse keeper's quarters were sparse but comfortable. A circular room with weathered wooden floors and windows facing the restless ocean. Lucas had converted the old storage space into his personal sanctuary years ago, never imagining he would one day hide an alien princess within its walls. Thea slept for nearly 16 hours, giving Lucas time to conceal her damaged vessel under fallen branches and moss. He'd managed to salvage a small metallic cube from the wreckage, which pulsed with the same ethereal light that marked Thea's skin. Now, as dawn painted the horizon in watercolor hues, he watched her stir beneath the patchwork quilt his grandmother had made. "Where am I?" she murmured, violet eyes fluttering open. "My home," Lucas replied, offering a glass of water. "The lighthouse." She studied the glass suspiciously before accepting it. This structure guides your water vessels. Ships. Yes. My family has maintained it for generations. Thea attempted to stand, but winced, her hand flying to her side. The silvery blood had stopped flowing, but a bruise the color of deep indigo bloomed across her ribs. You should rest, Lucas advised, gently easing her back. Whatever brought you here wasn't gentle. Something dark crossed her expression. The Vexian Empire grows stronger. They've conquered 3 systems already. Fingers traced the luminous markings on her forearm. Lumeria was next. My sisters remained to fight, but the High Council ordered me to escape with the ancestral knowledge. She nodded toward the cube Lucas had retrieved. What exactly is Lumeria? He asked, placing the cube beside her. A water world, much like your Earth, but our oceans glow with bioluminescent life forms we've cultivated for millennia. Pride colored her voice. We've learned to communicate with the deepest creatures, to harmonize technology with natural rhythms. Over the following days, a tentative trust formed between them. Lucas brought marine specimens for her to examine: sea urchins, tiny phosphorescent jellyfish, samples of rare algae from his university lab. Thea's eyes would light up with childlike wonder. Despite being from a civilization thousands of years beyond Earth's, your oceans are young, she explained one evening. Her delicate fingers hovering over a tide pool Lucas had recreated in a glass tank, but full of potential. Lucas found himself entranced by her every movement, the way her violet skin seemed to capture and reflect light, how her expressions shifted like the changing tides. When their hands accidentally touched as they examined a particularly interesting anemone, an electric current seemed to pass between them. I've never met anyone like you, he confessed, not pulling away. Thea's luminescent markings pulsed slightly brighter. Nor I you. Their quiet routine was shattered one morning by the harsh sound of static from every electronic device in the lighthouse. The radio, Lucas's phone. Even the old television all emitting the same rhythmic pattern. Thea's face drained to a pale lavender. They're scanning, she whispered, clutching the ancestral cube protectively. The Vexians are worse Lumerian scouts. If they find me, they'll bring their war to your world. Lucas watched as she frantically adjusted her bracelet, sending out a countersignal. The static gradually subsided, but the carefree atmosphere had vanished. I should leave, she said, not meeting his eyes. My presence endangers everything. Lucas caught her hand, surprising himself with his boldness. Where would you go? You're still healing. Their eyes locked and something unspoken passed between them, something that transcended the vast differences of their worlds. Stay, he whispered, at least until we figure this out together. The ocean crashed against the shore outside, a rhythmic pulse that seemed to echo the growing connection between an earthbound dreamer and a starborn princess seeking sanctuary in his world. The university research lab was deserted at midnight, exactly as Lucas had planned. He guided Thea through the darkened corridors, her violet skin concealed beneath a hooded sweatshirt and gloves. Are you certain this is permitted? She whispered, eyeing the authorized personnel-only sign they had just bypassed with Lucas's borrowed keycard. Not exactly, he admitted, unlocking the door to the marine bioluminescence research room. But my professor would understand if he knew what we were doing. The room illuminated with blue light as Lucas activated the specialized tanks housing various glowing organisms. Thea moved toward them like a moth to flame, her concealed markings pulsing in response to their distant aquatic cousins. These are primitive versions of our communication network, she explained. Removing her gloves to place a hand against the glass, the creatures inside responded immediately, swimming toward her touch. On Lumeria, we evolved alongside such beings, learning to interpret and eventually replicate their light patterns. Lucas watched in amazement as she removed the ancestral cube from her pocket, placing it beside the tank. The cube responded to the bioluminescent life, projecting holographic symbols that danced across the darkened laboratory. This is how I might contact my people without alerting the Vexians, Thea explained. Your oceans could carry our messages through light instead of detectable radio waves. They worked through the night. Thea, teaching Lucas's principles of quantum bioluminescent communication while he contributed his knowledge of Earth's marine ecosystems. Their collaboration flowed effortlessly, ideas building upon ideas, each complementing the other's perspective. As dawn approached, exhaustion caught up with them. They sat side by side on the lab floor, backs against the wall, watching the gentle pulsing of their experimental setup. "Tell me about Lumeria," Lucas said softly. "Not just the science, tell me about your home." Something vulnerable crossed Thea's features. "Our cities float on the surface of an endless ocean, connected by bridges of living coral that respond to our thoughts. The buildings grow rather than being constructed, shaped from crystalline structures that rise from the depths." Her voice grew wistful. "At night, the entire planet glows with blue and purple light, the deep creatures rising to the surface to sing their ancient songs." Lucas reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. "It sounds beautiful." "It was," she whispered, "before the war." In the soft blue glow of the laboratory, Lucas found himself leaning closer. Thea's eyes met his, luminescent in the dim light, a universe of unexplored feelings reflecting between them. Their first kiss tasted of salt and starlight, tentative, questioning, then deepening with shared discovery. Her skin warmed beneath his touch, her markings glowing brighter as his hands traced respectful patterns along her shoulders and back. When they finally separated, breathless, Thea's forehead rested against his. "On my world," she murmured, "we believe that souls recognize each other across the void of space. Perhaps that explains how I traveled so far only to find you." The intimate moment shattered as the cube suddenly pulsed with urgent light, projecting a series of rapid symbols across the room. Thea pulled away, her expression transforming from tender to alarmed. "What is it?" Lucas asked, her eyes moments ago soft with affection, now sharpened with fear. "Ships have entered your solar system, Lumerian vessels." She turned to him, conflict evident in her gaze. "They've tracked the cube's energy signature. They're coming for me." Lucas felt his newfound happiness teetering on a precipice. "Is that good news?" "Your people found you." Thea's markings dimmed noticeably. "My sisters lead those ships, but they won't simply take me home. They'll want Earth's oceans too. Resources for the war." She closed her eyes briefly. "What I've found with you, they wouldn't understand such attachments in times of conflict." Outside the laboratory windows, the first hints of sunrise painted the horizon golden light, touching the vast ocean that now seemed to connect them to distant worlds and approaching complications neither had anticipated. Dark clouds gathered over the coastline, mirroring the tension that had settled between Lucas and Thea in the days following the detection of Lumerian vessels. Weather forecasts warned of an unprecedented storm system moving inland, but Lucas knew this was no ordinary meteorological event. "They're creating atmospheric disturbances to mask their approach," Thea explained, her fingers dancing across the ancestral cube's surface as they stood in the lighthouse observatory. "Standard protocol for reconnaissance on inhabited worlds." The wind howled outside, rattling the windows as rain began to fall in sheets. Lucas watched her work, memorizing every detail, the slight furrow between her brows when concentrating, the way her violet skin caught the lightning flashes, transforming them into ripples of luminescence across her features. "How much time do we have?" he asked, voice barely audible above the storm. 3 days, perhaps less." Her eyes remained fixed on the holographic projections emanating from the cube. "I've been trying to send them coded messages through the oceanic bioluminescent network we established, but they're not responding." Lucas moved beside her, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Maybe they can't distinguish your signals from Earth's natural patterns yet." Thea leaned into his touch, momentarily abandoning her work. "Or they don't wish to. My sisters, particularly Lyra, the eldest, believe sentiment is weakness. They would consider my—" She paused, her gaze meeting his, "feelings for you, a dangerous distraction." The admission hung between them, both exhilarating and devastating. Lucas drew her closer, his heartbeat synchronizing with the pulsing of her bioluminescent markings. This isn't just about us anymore, is it? He whispered against her hair. She confirmed, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. The Vexian Empire destroyed our home moon. My sisters believe conquest is the only path forward. Taking resources from primitive worlds like yours to rebuild our civilization, and you don't agree? Thea pulled back slightly, framing his face with her hands. Before I met you, perhaps I would have. But you've shown me another way cooperation, balance, mutual growth. Her thumbs traced his cheekbones with tender precision. Your world doesn't deserve to become collateral damage in our war. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the room in stark white light. In that flash, Lucas made his decision, claiming her lips with newfound urgency. They moved together as the storm raged, clothes discarded, boundaries dissolved. Two beings from different worlds, finding common language in touch and whispered devotions. Their intimacy transcended physical connection, as Thea's markings glowed with unprecedented brightness. Lucas felt her consciousness brush against his fleeting impressions of crystal cities, vast glowing oceans, and the weight of royal responsibility in the aftermath. They lay entwined beneath the lighthouse windows, watching the storm intensify. The ancestral cube pulsed rhythmically nearby, responding to their combined presence. I have to meet them, Thea finally said, her voice resolute, before they come looking. Lucas tightened his arm around her. I'm coming with you. She shifted to look at him, surprise evident. It will be dangerous. My sisters are family, he completed, and family should listen. His fingers traced one of her luminous markings. Besides, I think I have an idea. Outside, the largest wave yet crashed against the lighthouse rocks, sending spray against the windows like tears. The storm had only begun, both outside and within their hearts. Dawn broke on the third day with unnatural stillness. The ocean lay flat as glass, reflecting a sky where clouds hung motionless, suspended by forces beyond Earth's natural physics. Lucas and Thea stood on the deserted beach, the ancestral cube buried in the sand between them, connected to a network of bioluminescent organisms they had carefully positioned throughout the bay. They're here, Thea whispered, her markings pulsing rapidly as she gazed upward. Though invisible to human eyes, Lucas knew 3 Lumerian vessels hovered above them, cloaked by advanced technology. The cube at their feet glowed brilliantly, sending patterns through the sand that reached the water's edge, transforming the entire bay into a living communication device. Remember the plan, he said, squeezing her hand before reluctantly releasing it. Thea nodded, stepping forward alone. She raised her arms, her royal markings now fully illuminated as she projected her consciousness. Upward a beacon, impossible for her people to ignore. The air shimmered, and 3 figures materialized on the beach before them. Tall, violet-skinned women with elaborate markings that outshone Thea's in both complexity and brightness. Their expressions were identical cold assessment, mixed with relief. Sister, the tallest, addressed Thea, pointedly ignoring Lucas. The High Council will be pleased. Lyra Thea acknowledged with a formal bow that failed to convey warmth. Mira Alara, she nodded to the others. I'm pleased to see you unharmed. We've located 7 suitable worlds for relocation, Lyra continued briskly. This one has promising oceans, though the indigenous population presents complications. Her eyes flicked dismissively toward Lucas. The Vexians have taken the central palace. We must establish a new stronghold immediately. By displacing other civilizations? Thea questioned. Becoming what we fought against? Lyra's markings flashed dangerously. By surviving, sister. Sentiment for lesser species is not sentiment, Thea interrupted. Evolution. She gestured to the cube. I've discovered something our ancestors knew, but we've forgotten. Got her command? The ancestral cube activated fully. The entire bay illuminated with synchronized bioluminescence, patterns rippling outward in expanding circles. Lucas stepped forward, placing a small vial of concentrated algae he had cultivated into the sand beside the cube. Your earth science is irrelevant, Mira began dismissively, but fell silent as the vial's contents connected with the cube's energy field. A holographic projection materialized, internalized in text interwoven with Earth's genetic codes, forming a harmonious pattern that expanded upward. The projection revealed historical records. Lemurians had visited Earth millennia ago, seeding the oceans with early versions of their bioluminescent communication network. "We're connected," Lucas explained, finding his voice despite the intimidating presence of the royal sisters. "Your ancestors didn't conquer, they collaborated. They left communication nodes in Earth's oceans as a sanctuary, a backup plan." Thea moved to stand beside him. "Earth isn't a resource to exploit, it's our ancestral partner. The cube contains templates for integration, not domination." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Lyra's features. "The High Council never spoke of this, 'cause they forgot," Thea replied gently. "In our advancement, we lost the wisdom of balance." She reached for Lucas's hand. He helped me rediscover it. The holographic display expanded, showing how Earth's oceans could amplify Lemurian signals across galaxies, creating a communication network powerful enough to coordinate resistance against the Vexian Empire without sacrificing either world. "With Earth as ally, rather than subject, both our civilizations thrive," Thea continued. "I've experienced their capacity for adaptation, for understanding." Her eyes met Lucas's with unguarded affection, for love. The sisters exchanged glances, centuries of royal training battling with the undeniable evidence before them. Finally, Alartha youngest stepped forward. "The High Council will require convincing," she said, "but the ancestral records cannot be dismissed." A faint smile softened her features. Perhaps it's time Lemuria evolved beyond conquest. As negotiations continued into the evening, plans formed for a new kind of alliance. Earth scientists working alongside Lemurian technologists. Oceans serving as bridges between worlds rather than battlegrounds. Later, beneath a sky now filled with visible stars, as the Lemurian ships to cloak in gesture of trust. Lucas and Thea stood at the lighthouse balcony, her head resting against his shoulder. "Will you return with them?" He asked the question he'd been afraid to voice. Thea's fingers intertwined with his. "I'll travel between worlds as ambassador," she answered. "But home, ... Her markings pulsed in synchrony with the lighthouse beam as it swept across the ocean. "Home is where our frequencies align. Above them, shooting stars or perhaps Lemurian ships traced paths across the night sky. Below, the bay glowed with gentle blue light, Earth's waters awakening to ancient connections and new possibilities. Between them, something both cosmic and profoundly human had taken root. Love that. It's like the best of both their worlds, found strength in diversity rather than conquest." In the lighthouse that had always guided ships safely to shore, two beings from distant stars had found their own safe harbor, one built on understanding, respect, and the remarkable discovery that across the vast universe, the capacity to connect remains the most advanced technology of all.